Well, here we are, Halloween weekend. You know, kids love it. It's a great time of year. I remember I loved it as a kid. My parents would always take us to the houses of the people that we knew, because back then people would give you popcorn balls and homemade candies, and they would give you carameled apples. Well, you know, because it wasn't store-bought, you didn't want to go to a house with somebody you didn't know, and so our parents made sure we went to only the houses of the people we know. But I hope that you have a good time with your kids or grandkids. I think Halloween can be fun if it's done in a family way. But this message isn't about Halloween. It's really about something more than that. But when I was a kid, one time as a costume for Halloween, I went as the devil. And I guess that's kind of ironic since my dad was a preacher. I had a little costume that was actually PJ, so that after Halloween you could continue to wear the outfit. It said the devil made me do it on the chest, and I had a little devil's mask, and I think I had a tail and a pitchfork. You know, it wasn't until years later that I saw The Exorcist. That's when I really began to understand who the devil really was. And when I grew up, I didn't want my kids to go as the devil for Halloween because I realized that he's real. And I don't believe that he's real because The Exorcist is the scariest movie I've ever seen. I believe that he's real because Jesus said that he's real. Jesus was tempted by the devil, and Jesus said that he is a liar and the father of lies. And Jesus was very specific to say that he came to kill, steal, and destroy. Now, what we know from Scripture is that Satan, Lucifer, the devil, was an angel, and he aspired to be like God, and he wanted people to worship him instead of God, and he was kicked out of heaven by God. He took a third of the angels with him, so there's the devil and demons. Now, he is not omniscient, he is not omnipotent, he is not omnipresent. He doesn't have the same powers as God, but he is powerful, and he is doing an awful lot of evil in the world. And so I really encourage people to think about what they watch, where they go, and what they involve themselves in, because you don't want to get yourself inveigled in anything that is involving the devil or Satan, because he is evil and he will do the one thing he came to do, which is to seek to divide and to kill and destroy. You know, when I was a pastor, I'll never forget something that happened in a hospice room. I was praying over a young woman who I did not know and had never spoken to in life, but I was there as a favor to the family. She was not a believer, at least the family wasn't sure. They kind of hoped that she had some belief in Jesus, but she was an alcoholic, and she was dying of alcoholism, and she was jaundiced. And as we went to her hospice room, she lay there very quiet on the bed in a coma, and her eyes were closed, and we gathered around the bed. I put my right hand on her shoulder. We all held hands and gathered all the way around the bed, and the other relative was on her left shoulder, and I began to pray over her. And while I began to pray over her, I suddenly felt her body rise up, and she raised up at the hip, and she opened her eyes, and she looked directly to the end of the bed. And when she did, a look of sheer terror came over her face. She didn't say anything, but that look was one I would never forget. And so I turned and looked to the end of the bed just like everybody else, and of course there was nothing we could see that was there, but she was clearly scared. So I put my hand a little harder on her shoulder, and I pushed her so she went back down onto the bed, and when she did, she closed her eyes, and I continued my prayer because I was praying to the God of heaven and earth who's greater than the devil. And I prayed a little bit longer, a little extra prayer because of what I had seen. You know, that was frightening to me because she was seeing something that I couldn't see. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. While I'm sitting here, acorns are falling out of these trees and hitting things, and I know that that's because of gravity. I can't see gravity, but I know it's there because I see the effects of gravity just like that. The wind is blowing. I can't see the wind, but I can see the effects of the wind in the trees as it blows through the trees. So I know it's there. Just because you can't see Satan doesn't mean that Satan is not real. Jesus said he was real, and that's enough reason for me to believe that he is. The scripture says here in Ephesians 6, verse 12, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. We are fighting a battle, and it's good versus evil. And Satan is trying to take as many people to hell with him as he possibly can. That's just the way he works. That's his goal. And while he is on this earth, he has freedom. Now, there's going to be a day when God will cast him into the lake of fire and it'll be over. And God can do that with the breath of his mouth. But until that time, until the time that God decides, this will continue. So I encourage you to be careful what you watch, be careful what you read, be careful what you involve yourself in, and most certainly talk to your kids and grandkids about that. Don't let them get involved in things like Ouija boards, and I would encourage you to discourage them from going to see these movies and giving money to these companies who are making these horrifying movies that are scaring people. There's a movie out right now that says people are so afraid when they watch it, they're throwing up and passing out. I don't know what it is because I'm not going to go see it, but I saw it on the news the other day. Here's the thing. We are called to think about lovely, heavenly, beautiful, excellent, praiseworthy, beautiful things that come from heaven, not these things. And I would encourage you to be careful and make sure your grandkids and kids stay away from these things. Tell them to focus on the good things, not on the evil things. I'll see you next week. Have a great one. Enjoy your week this week and keep walking with Jesus, and I'll do the same.